Well, welcome to Jan-Piet's Choice. And I was just saying to these people before here, it looks like after more than a year we're finally getting a little bit serious about this. And today for the first time we have a video recording and sound recording, I think at the same time, of Jan-Piet's Choice. And Hiroko has volunteered to do this for us, which I think is marvelous. And so hopefully, if this goes okay, if I'm doing all right, then we'll maybe get this posted on YouTube. So maybe you're now watching us on YouTube. But if you do, then you should know that we have been doing this for about a year, every Wednesday at noon. We play some music here in Armidale in Australia, and I talk about it. And that's basically it. And what I always do, I'm going to do now too, of course, we're going to play some music, in this case with two of my wonderful students, Shae Leske, who just passed her AMB exam with an A+, and Jodie Ostenfeld, who plays the violin. Shae plays the recorder. We're going to play this marvelous piece of music, and then we're going to talk about it. And you can see if you can work out what this piece of music is all about, and maybe when it was composed, and maybe in which country, and all that sort of things. Yeah? I think that's for the first time that we have a recorder in Jan-Piet's Choice. And I'm so pleased that Shae has agreed to do this today. And hopefully we'll have more recorders soon. Maybe Shae, maybe other recorder players. Many great recorder players in Armidale. Many of them young. Shae's age, high school age. So, what do you think of that piece? Pretty, right? Yeah, pretty much 18th century. Yeah, that's right on. Yeah. Now, how would you guess? You listen to 18th century music and it sounds a bit like that. What sort of 18th century?
Yeah, it was just the style of the repetition of themes in the various places.
What sort of 18th century music has you been listening to, may I ask?
Mostly what you've been producing.
Like Bach and stuff like that? Like Bach and stuff like that? So you say it's a bit Bach-like in a way.
Yes, that's what I was.
You think it might? You think it might actually be a bit Bach?
Is this like sort of trick question?
No.
I was thinking it could be by Bach.
Yeah, yeah. Well, any Bach scholars who think it may be by Bach or not by Bach? You don't think it could be by Bach? No. But it's clearly that sort of time. But it's not quite Bach's accent, is that right? It's not quite his sort of style, the way he speaks. It's maybe not even quite. It's not complex enough. No, but even though the composer tries a little bit, right? It's not complex enough, but he tries a little bit in the beginning, does he not? Like take just the very beginning. Can you play the beginning? Can you play your beginning? Sort of the same thing, right? Like they do sort of the same thing, but of course not at the same time. I do my beginning. Also a little bit the same thing. But if Bach would do this, he would take it much more seriously, and for much longer, she would play the exact same thing as her, and I would too, right? So this composer says, I'm sort of doing a little bit of a Bach, but I'm not going to vary too much. Enough is enough, and a little bit is enough, in fact, right? So yes, I think you're very right. It is in many ways like Bach, but it's not quite complex enough. It's not quite serious enough. And I think it's maybe not even that country I was trying to sort of hint at. You think it's Italian, maybe? Because it's so light and sunny, right?
Light and sunny, and a country that was producing a lot of music around the same time.
Tons of music. Like what sort of composers? Well, I mean, the composer in Italy from this time is, of course, Vivaldi. Yes. Do you think it sounds like Vivaldi?
Yeah, it's a bit Vivaldi.
The lady over there says no. You think because it's so reserved, right? So cool. And it's not English, but it could almost maybe be, but not quite. No. There's almost no Dutch music to speak of, certainly not at this time. It has exactly the elegance, I personally think very much the refinement and the je ne sais quoi, the sophistication of French music from the Baroque period. And in fact, I leave that Baroque period out because I so often think if you have later French music, take composers like, last week we talked about your friend? Ravel, or even Debussy. I think often it's of course a completely different style, different feel, different colors, but in some ways the same sort of, often a bit reserved, but sophistication, elegance, refinement. Ravel, sometimes in a very fun, witty, almost boyish sort of way, but you know what I mean? Refinement and elegance and sophistication, right? And I mean, you can say, well, you mean Bach is not sophisticated? Well, of course it is. Brahms not refined? Yes, of course, but in a sort of different way. If you see what I'm saying, right? So, in some ways, could you sometimes say that this French music, this stuff, Ravel, Debussy, does it not quite have the depth of a Brahms or a Bach, without being offensive? But I think that's maybe a little bit fair to say. You don't always have to think about something for 3 million hours. Maybe 5 minutes is enough, you know? And then just enjoy this. You know, a glass of wine, and no worries, mate, a little bit, you know? I'm trying to talk about the character of different sorts of music without, of course, offending anybody, and not composers, no national sort of music. But if I don't try this, then we don't get anywhere. We say, well, everything is good and everything is fine. Well, that doesn't mean anything. So yeah, it's French Baroque music, and for me it's very, in some ways, very quintessentially French, despite the composer doing a little bit of his Bachian imitation in the beginning, but only just a little bit. He doesn't take it too seriously. But I tell you what I think is quintessentially French in the beginning of the piece right away. Can we do the beginning? And then I'll stop, and I stop at that beautiful moment. We stop at that bar, that's the one. We don't want to hold that note, because it's so nice. Now that for me, that's such a French moment. Bach could write this, of course he could, but he didn't usually. Not in that sort of obvious and at the same time elegant, sophisticated, easygoing, almost a little bit tongue-in-cheek way. And in France, not only could they do it, but they do it all the time. Those chords. And Bach loved those chords, and he uses them. But when Bach uses that language, it becomes serious, profound, deep German. You know? And when French composers like this one use it, you say, nice, oh, nice, I love it. But not so serious, in a way. You know, is it fair to say, you think?
Not so heavily.
Oh, no, yeah, okay, yeah. No, of course. No, it would be terrible to say that the French were not serious. Of course, they were very serious in their lightness.
Yes. This is Molière as opposed to Racine. Now, there must have been some Racine.
Yes, yeah, very good. If it's French music from about Bach's time, which composer could this be, you think? We're going to guess Rameau, because only, is it like 2 months ago that we played Rameau here, and it was so beautiful, right? We loved it, but it's not Rameau. And I tell you what the difference is with Rameau. Rameau, at heart, is an opera composer. This guy, at heart, is a chamber music composer. Cute little piece in a small room in a palace, I'm sure, or somewhere at home. Cute little piece, very characteristic. This guy gives his pieces titles. In this case, no, but often his pieces have titles that refer to all kinds of things, but apparently also to people in very sophisticated, sort of witty ways. So not opera, but little satirical sort of little poetry. That's this guy. The other guy, Rameau, opera, and we're going to revise all of music theory and then put it into practice. That's Rameau, right? This guy is quite happy with music theory as it is. He just pushes a little bit here, pushes a little bit there, and makes this lovely, as it were, satirical little poetry about this funny guy over there, that funny girl over there, or a part of Paris where there's funny things going on. Yes, of course, François Couperin, nicknamed Le Grand, François Couperin the Great, because there were so many Couperins who were musicians, famously for keyboard players. François Couperin's uncle, Louis Couperin, was also a great organist and harpsichordist. François Couperin, organ and harpsichord in the first place. For most people, more a harpsichord person. 4 wonderful books of harpsichord music and a very lovely little book about how to play the harpsichord. And it's a little bit chaotic in a very friendly way, but he tells you so many wonderful things about how to exactly play the harpsichord. And also how to teach. I tell you one little thing about that I so often have told people. Couperin says he goes for the private lesson to the house of one of the wealthy Parisian girls, and he teaches her to play the harpsichord for an hour or so every day. And after the lesson, of course, he closes the harpsichord and takes the keys with him. And you say, but, you mean she couldn't practice? Yes, of course we're gonna let her practice. She's gonna mess it up on her own. Tomorrow I'll be back and then we work further. You see? That's, of course, one way of looking at pedagogy, but not completely invalid. And there's many other things. So this is François Couperin, and this is a little piece from his big opus of chamber music. François Couperin published one big collection, well, very many, but this is a famous one, collection of chamber music. I think it's probably meant, with all due respect, for 2 violins, and not for an organ, but probably for a harpsichord. And it would be good if you had a cello, but we couldn't find one, or some kind of string-based instrument, because then it's more fun. So it's a bit of a translation we're doing here today, but of course the recorder is a perfectly valid substitute for that first violin. The recorder was around and was played in France, no kidding. So it's very nice. And I just chose to play the organ because it's sometimes nice to play the organ. And I use the 2 keyboards of the organ to play maybe the left hand a little bit louder. I don't know if that's working, but I try anyway to sort of make it a little bit sound like a cello a little bit. I'm not sure if that works. And there are many nice stories about this collection of chamber music. It's called Les Nations, the nations, the countries, the nations. And each of the 4 groups of pieces bears the name of a country or region in Europe. But what's behind this is this. The piece we're playing today is not a sonata. We'll talk about it in a moment. But what Couperin did with this publication is he introduced, as he looks at it, the Italian trio sonata in France. Now, you cannot really do that. That's not really possible. So what François Couperin said is that he, as it were, translated, as it were, the Italian trio sonata into French. And what he said he did is very funny. He said he did that years before this was published. And he wrote a trio sonata in what he thought was Italian style. And he presented it at the French court under a pseudonym. He played around with the letters of his name and produced an Italian sounding name. I think it may have been Perugino. I think, but that's just my private idea. And he said to the people at the court, here is a trio sonata by the composer Perugino. And it was sent to me by a nephew I have at the court in Sicily or somewhere. Right? And he says he did this because he knows how the French love Italian music and sort of distrust their own French music. That's his words. So he says, my first trio sonata was greatly applauded under its false name. And he kept doing this, more and more trio sonatas, and finally he published them. Now, what is so nice is that finally Couperin says, I think you got to be kidding. How could you not believe, how could you believe that this was really Italian? Yes, it's an Italian form, but at heart, could you not hear how French this music was? And when he publishes it, the first piece of this book, he calls that trio sonata La Française. The French piece. He says, Italian trio sonata, you gotta be kidding me. I pulled all you guys' leg, but of course it's not Italian. This is as French as can be, La Française. This piece comes from the same book of trios, but it's not a sonata, but what is it? What happens in this piece? Well, at the beginning is a bit of a canon, but only a little bit hinting at it, right? He does a little bit of Bach, but not too much. But what happens in the piece as we play it? It's a short piece, we can play it again if you like. We'll play it on